Hey everyone, this is Nick from NXT Plants, and today I'm going to be going over my Wishlist Anthurium. There's no particular order to what I'm going to talk about, so starting off, it's one I don't really have any examples to compare against, or any of my own plants to show you similar things, and it's going to be the Veitchii Super Narrow. There's a few specimens I'm going to show the pictures of that I'm looking at, that way you can sort of go along with me. So I've taken, screenshots from Instagram and Facebook of these different plants. I'm looking at Rousseau's Veitchii here, and that's really the one that keeps making me really want a super narrow Veitchii. I'm not the biggest fan of non-velvets, and when I am, it's usually because they have great texture, and I'd say the Veitchii with this sort of narrow ribbing definitely meets that. Another example is this one here that looks to be in some sort of large garden space. Again, super beautiful texture, nice tight ribbing. Here's another photo of an example, and I would love a Veitchii one day that looks like even a fraction of any of these ones. I think the specific thing that draws me to it is sort of the extreme narrowness and then that just really nice symmetrical patterning down the leaf. The next plant I have, where it's more of a category of plant, is more Carla Blackiae. I've been really enjoying this one Carla I have. This is my only Carla. I always get questions, and no, I just have the one. It's a RA5X RA10. Specifically, I'm looking for Carlas with more of an interesting vein pattern. Grow in plants. And he has a really nice wand one with beautiful sort of random, chaotic, disconnected veining. So I wouldn't mind a Carla with that sort of appearance, or Carla with sort of a thicker, more blistery, veined appearance. I do appreciate how just like classic, gorgeous Carla this one is though. And of course, any Carla would have to have the black color. It's not a Carla without it. One other type of Carla is the ones that get that purpley emergent. I quite like those. The next plant on my wish list is an Eastern Dressleri. There's one specific one from Woohoo that I'm absolutely obsessed with. I'll put up some pictures. So I'm looking at this one picture of the Eastern dress from Woohoo, and sort of the main differences I would say is the very different vein structure and very different lobe shape. This specific Eastern dress that I'm drawn to is also a lot, rounder than an RG dress at this size. I think the big thing that draws me to this specific Eastern dress is the blue-black color that it exhibits. I think it would make some wonderful hybrids. And a big thing that drives my wish list is plants that I'm looking for to make hybrids with. And I'm always looking for dark velvet round specimens because there's so many interesting complementary plants for it. So I'm gonna put that down and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the photos I found of it. First one here is from Woohoo Tropicals, and they're the ones that have the Eastern dress that I really like. Not really very similar to an RG dress, but quite beautiful. And there's this other one from when they made a hybrid, and you can see it's got a very black blue color, and it's a nice compact growth pattern. The Eastern dress has, great color, great shape, it's velvet. Really, there's what's not to love, especially with this specific clone. Some of the other ones, it's hard to know whether it's how it's being grown or if it's the plant's sort of maximum potential, but this one in particular is really drawn my eye. The next plant on my wish list I actually have a hybrid of, and that's the Anthurium rugulosum. I'm looking at some pictures here that I'm going to put up. These are from Arthur's website. This is an interesting non-velvet species. I'm most interested in it for its potential hybrids, especially with other velvet ones. J. Vanini did an interesting series that this is part of called the Queen series, which has the Quechua Queen, which is Marmoratum rugulosum, the Carib Queen, which is Dress rugulosum, and the Canal Queen, which is Pap rugulosum. And then there's the Quokka Queen, which is Forgetii X rugulosum. I'll put up the exact hybrid in case I got the order wrong on any of those. And here is a Quechua Queen. So it's got the rugulosum texture and sort of a sub-velvetness that it inherited from the Marmoratum. Like I said, the reason I'm interested in the rugulosum is to impart its texture onto hybrids. There's some different rugulosum kicking around and things that are called rugulosum that are probably rugulosum AF. I'm specifically looking for one of these, probably F1s from J. Vanini. You can see the price they go for. A big reason I want the one specifically from J. Vanini is to settle any doubts about it being potentially an AF instead of a true species. The next plant on my wish list is another one I don't have, but I do have a closely related species, and I'm going to show you this. The next Anthurium is Anthurium pacificum. So it's very similar to the Clydemioides. I like to describe it as if you took a rolling pin to the Clydemioides and sort of flattened it a little bit, stretched it out. Let me pull up some pictures so we can look at them together. The first screenshot here is, as you can see, it's pretty interesting. It's got a good sort of hand shape to it. Really nice subdued texture. Here's one from Exotica Esoterica, which is J. Vanini's website where he likes to publish his articles. This is where I first saw it, and I gotta say, this picture has really drew me to it. I like how compact and bushy it's growing in this picture, and I also really, like I said, I'm drawn to the texture. As I said before, the pacificum and the Clydemioides are all part of a section of the Anthurium, and they're all pretty similar looking. As I've been talking about this quite a bit, this was one of my wishlist plants for quite a long time. And after getting it, I've been very happy growing it, which is why I'm pretty interested in getting a Pacificum. They also readily hybridize. So it'd be fun to one day make a hybrid that's known to be doable. And they readily hybridize actually in the wild. The next one I want to talk about, I don't have any examples to show you, and that's going to be the Anthurium radicans. I've got some pictures up here from Woohoo. The thing that draws me most to this plant is, again, its potential in hybrids with that interesting texture, but specifically about the radicans is it's actually a crawler. And I don't have any crawling Anthurium, so I think it'd be fun to play around growing one that is going to crawl along the surface of the pot. So I'm going to put up some pictures now and let's look at them together. You can see very sort of short, compact, close to the ground growth pattern. And look, there's even a flower in this picture, and you can see it's hiding under the leaves, pretty much on the substrate. And look, you can see the stem in this photo and how it's like laying flat. The plant looks happy as can be. The next plant I'm going to talk about is a specific Cuneolense clone. I have a child of this clone, so I'm going to show that here. The specific Cunea I really like the appearance of is the PM3. I believe it's originally from RA, and the ones I'm going to be showing pictures of are the photos, and the plant is being grown by Grant. Oh, and to clear things up, PM stands for Paul Marcellini. And he's the one who sort of popularized and done a bunch of breeding with this particular clone. And he uses the PM to distinguish it for, you know, his own internal purposes. So you can see the reason I like this Cunea clone is how round and dark it is. It looks like, you know, just a big old fat heart. It's got really great shape, velvet, lovely ribbing. And Cunea make really pretty hybrids. And another thing to point out is Cunea generally aren't the darkest. So when you have a nice dark clone like this, to me it's very desirable for making offspring with. The next species I'm going to talk about is Anthurium sp. Nova Panama. So it's an undescribed new species from Panama. It's gorgeous, large, velvety leaves with beautiful purple veining when they're fresh. I unfortunately couldn't find a photo. I've seen a few, and one of the people who's sort of local to me and likes to collect Anthuriums has one. And I'm going to insert some pictures and so we can sort of look at it. Great shape, nice velvet, and, you know, nice purple veins when it, on the emergence. There isn't a ton of info or really photos out of this plant, but absolutely gorgeous. I love the chance to sort of grow it and try and make some hybrids with it. The next plant on my wish list is going to be a BVAP. And I'm looking specifically for one with like a really nice black hard photo. So I'm going to insert some pictures of sort of what I look for in a BVAP. I like the like high lobes and the very much like North Star sort of vein pattern. Black, bumpy texture. I like BVAP, and having multiple BVAP would allow me to make my own BVAP that aren't overly inbred. And just to clear things up, BVAP is commonly called Antilochii now. I always call it BVAP just because of habit. BVAP is short for Black Velvet Eastern Panama. This BVAP here has a very sort of classic rounder BVAP shape. One of the BVAPs I like the look of a lot is the RA1, and that's got a sort of narrower shape to it. So in the BVAPs I'm looking for, I would like to have a variety of sort of shapes still black. Before I run away with it, this is a Mark VAP, which is an RAXL, and it's making babies for me. And it wants to make more babies. The next plant I want to talk about is closely related to the SP Nov DF, and that is the Dorito port. They both have a nice triangular shape. I'd say one of the more noticeable differences is the DF has a more extreme shape. Some of the more specifics, I notice it does a lot more of the pinching and folding on itself, and the sinus tends to be a bit wider of an angle. Okay, I'm going to put up some photos. This first one here is from Scott. You can see what I was saying. It's got a little bit narrower of a V up at the top and a bit wider, doesn't so much pinch on itself. I like to say the DF looks like it's wearing a corset. Some interesting things and why I said it was closely related to the DF is it's believed to be a primary DF wild hybrid, and the Dorito port, the NSE port, and the DF were all collected by the same person, Dewey Fisk, from a similar site. Another photo I got is from Woohoo, and you can see how dark and sort of beautiful triangle shape this plant has. And for those of you wondering why it's called the Dorito port, when you see the emergent, you'll understand it looks like a Dorito. The last plant I'm going to talk about on my wish list is a Bessier, and not to be confused with the Bessier AF, which I'm showing you right here. I didn't want to pull out my big one. I can show you a picture. It was way at the back of a tent, and I just put a million things in front of it, and I was not in the mood to pull it out because it's holding some inflows, and it gets beat around every time I do. So I'm going to show some photos. One of the things that immediately drew me to the Bessier is its rippled edges. I find there's not too many plants that hold that sort of ruffly look into maturity. There are two commonly available forms of the true Bess, and there's the clumping and the non-clumping. I'm specifically more interested in the non-clumping. I've heard some horror stories about the clumping. By clumping, I mean it likes to make lots of offsets. And I've heard some horror stories about people's Bessiers offsetting until death, and it sort of chokes itself out and you lose a plant connected to a root system, you end up losing the plant, which is why I'm more interested in the non-clumping. Absolutely gorgeous. I love the Bessier AF. They're not that they're really related in any sort of way. You can see beautiful dark flowers, gorgeous ripples, nice vein structure. I think it's beautiful. They don't readily hybridize, so I'm not really looking for it to make hybrids. I think it's more just a gorgeous, unique plant. And interestingly, it also crawls. Circling back, I did forget to include one of the plants on the wish list, and that's a dark forgetii. Another plant I want to talk about on my wish list is a sort of a dark forgetii. Right here, it's not a pure forgetii. This is Forgetii X Bvep or Antilaki from Woohoo. I really like it. I like how narrow, bumpy, and minimally veined it is. It kind of was my ideal outcome from this cross. I wanted, you know, a Bvep with a fused sinus, and I got a Bvep with a fused sinus. And this plant really sold me on the idea of getting a forgetii. The specific kind of forgetii I'm looking for is one that has no veins and is nice and dark. They tend to provide the best chance at getting good hybrids. And a big thing you look for from the forgetii is to impart the fused sinus, making the plant peltate. I'm going to hold it up so you can see the back. Okay, thank you all for watching my wishlist video. If you could give it a like or a subscribe, that'd be great. And if you would like to see more from me every day, check me out on Instagram. Same handle as here, NXC Plants. Have a good one.